What stopped you from committing suicide? The tomorrow. When I feel depressed, the thought of ending my life always shows up. It's not always, of course, but what divert this thought, it's the tomorrow day. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, maybe will be a good day smile. If I'm being honest, nothing. I was gonna do it, was committed to it, and realized at the time that no one would stop me. And for some reason that broke me. In every way. Something about that gave me a reason to live for, I guess. I realized I wanted to be someone who was missed when I died. Now that I have people close to me, a support system, those tendencies are a lot easier to keep under wraps. My sister walked into my room and hugged me. I would usually yell at her for being in my room without knocking and for being in my personal space. But right at that moment I didn't care. After we hugged for a solid 5 minutes, she got up to leave. I asked her why she did that, and she just told me she needed a hug from her big brother. I realized for the first time the impact my death would have on someone else. I was in my teens. I knew if I killed myself, my sisters, who are 13 years younger than me, would probably find the body and be scarred for life. So I went back to the kitchen and used the knife to cook pasta instead. For me and the girls. Best pasta ever. The constant feeling of cowardness. My attempt didn't work. I tried to overdose, and it didn't work for whatever reason. The math I did prior proved it should have, but it didn't. Afterwards, I imagined what my parents, brother, and extended family would do/say with this news and that I was dead. I will never attempt again for the simple fact of putting myself in my parents' shoes, and imaging what it would be like to have a picture of my lifeless body stuck in their head. For anyone who is contemplating suicide, please talk to someone. It doesn't matter how much detail you go into about why you are contemplating. Just please, find someone to talk to, someone you trust. Your life is worth more than what it may seem at the present moment. I literally fell asleep. Then I said I was going to do it the next day, but then I had school, so I had to push it till the next day. Kept pushing the date and ended up procrastinating for a year. Was going to hang myself in a tree in the woods. Took a good look at the tree and thought, I will miss these. I'm an arborist now. Weirdly enough, getting kicked out of my parents' house. Weird how much getting away from your abuser helps. Massive, soul-crushing clinical depression. After a long while my mom called me. She could tell something wasn't right. I love you, Mom. I was driving out towards the mountains to find a good place to just get it over with. Was pretty far out, no cell reception, when I come across a guy with a van on the side of the road waving me down. I figure I'll see what he wants. Turns out he and his family is just coming back from a camping trip and their van broke down and he wanted a ride back to the nearest town so he can call for a tow truck. I give the guy a lift back to town, and by the time we get there, my mood had shifted and the time for action had passed. No longer set on killing myself at that time, I just continue back home and figure I'll just do it another time. Years later I'm still here and doing a lot better. My brother beat me to it. Laziness. Music, and my mom made me promise I wouldn't die before her. My younger siblings, heart. The continued sense of duty spawning from the existence of my kids. My fucking dog stopped me. Procrastination. This might sound corny, but at 19 with my 1-year-old and becoming a single parent, my ex was the opposite of supportive. As much as I hated myself and as little as I thought of myself as a human being, I also knew that I was the only person my daughter had with the absolute best intentions. I hated myself so much, but I also knew I loved her with everything I had. The idea of her growing up to believe that her mom maybe didn't love her enough to fight hard enough to beat depression. I suffered 3 years but eventually overcame. So many ideas came to mind, I wailed my eyes out whenever I had a moment to myself to drown in those thoughts. I never felt so alone and invisible, but I'm so glad to have never actually gone through with any of that. I had already taken the pills, but then my cat came and demanded head boobs, lots of love, and it just hit me that I couldn't leave her. I broke down imagining how confused she'd be. I told my mom, and due to my shitty digestion, my cat, and getting to the hospital 2 to 3 after, I lived. I just came from spending a few days at my friend's house and my entire family was sleeping. Since it was late at night and I was alone, my thoughts just got the better of me and I started devising a plan. Then I got a soft knock on my window and my sister's friend asked me to unlock the door for my very drunk sister. A little annoyed, I go and unlock the door only for her to collapse into my arms. Her friend thanks me and I thank her for getting her back safely. I then carry her down to her room and the entire time she's crying saying how much she's missed me. I made sure she got in bed with a change of clothes and water and she asked me to hug her and stay with her until she fell asleep and I did. Once she did, I went back to my room and sat on the floor and cried for hours. Got a message from a girl I was talking to at the time. It said, "There's people that care about you, I care about you." I stopped on the side of the road to read that message a second time. That girl is now my girlfriend since 3 months ago. I won't forget that moment ever. A ghost/demon. Most probably won't even believe, so no idea why I'm even typing this story, but there was a point I was on my very low when I was still studying for university. I always had paranormal happenings in my life to a pretty insane degree, not anymore thankfully, but this one takes the cake. I one day decided to end it, tried to stab myself to end it, and right when I was returning the knife full force towards my heart, this girl appeared out of nowhere, held my hand and told me that it's not my time yet as I haven't achieved what must be done. She said that after I achieve what I have to achieve I'm eventually free to do anything I want, but until then I'm not allowed to. So well, here I am today about 7 or so years later. I think my family is the one that is stopping me from doing this. You know, I don't really remember. The last time I really, seriously considered that an option was 1979. It's kind of funny, there's this problem with antidepressants that people who were considering suicide but were too low energy to do it end up doing it just as the antidepressants begin to lift them out of the hole. Maybe I just didn't have the energy. But also, I had this one close friend and he was super supportive. I suppose it was easier to bitch to him about my life than it would have been to end my life. Anyway, what's that, 43 years? You know that thing where they say that if you end it now you just have no idea what you'll miss out on? Yeah. Do not kill yourself. Holy shit, I'd have missed out on my awesome wife, my fabulous kids, my fun career, so many trips, so many events, so much music, so many good friendships, and the food. I know that down inside the hole it's super easy to convince yourself that you won't ever have any of that good stuff. The world hates you and there's no awesome wife, no hope that you could raise good kids, no chance of getting a job or doing it well. Do not let your depression talk to you like that. Would you tell a friend that there's no hope of them ever having a good life? Who can you count on to be the friend you need if not yourself? Do not kill yourself. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I was 13 or 14 and it hadn't been a year since my mother died. It was around Christmas time and I was moody because it was gonna be my first Christmas without my mom. I was a hormonal depressed teenager and got into an argument with my dad. That night I took the rest of my ADHD medicine, almost a whole bottle, and went to bed, hoping for death. Then I remembered my dad was in the next room. He'd be the one to find me. He would have lost 2 of the people he loved most in the world. His youngest daughter would be gone. Imagining the look on his face. The heartbreak of having to pick out my casket. Just imagining his anguish was more than enough to get me off my ass and into the bathroom puking my guts out. I still suffered side effects the next few days. But at that time I vowed that I would never be the cause of my father's anguish. People say living for another person isn't a good reason for living. But it's the only thing that made me want to live. My mom is still alive. She'd be devastated. That's it. My 4-year-old said, "I love you daddy, you're my favorite." That was 4 hours before the time I had picked. Suicide is an unfortunately common occurrence with sailors, and a practice that has been observed is leaving your boots on the deck before jumping overboard to notify others that it was a conscious decision and not an accident. My first trip out to sea this past summer, my younger sister sent me a message just before I left port telling me to hang on to my boots. For most of the first month at sea I struggled with a lot of stress about school, and I was getting picked on by some of my shipmates. Every night I would sit in my rack and read the text from my sister, "I love you too. Keep your boots, stay safe on the boat." Just those few words meant worlds to me, and I'm not sure if I would be here without them. One piece. A big booty Latina and a blunt. Thought of how much it would hurt my wife and kid. I regret not doing it earlier. My daughter is who saved my life. After my wife passed away I was so close to committing suicide. Pressure, from everything. My friends knew just not how bad. The first round of suicidal thoughts was BC. I was on acne medication strong 1-2. I convinced myself of that, so I pushed through that BC of it. Second round I still had people that would miss me somewhat and feel bad that I didn't talk to them, and I'm just numb from everything, and I thought of it but there's no point, plus I got to do my part for climate change and finish my studies and at least work a bit. I'm also turning a new leaf now.